Well, what tonight's about is the Mental Health Media Awards, now run by Mind, the mental health charity, and I'm very pleased and proud as well that I've been nominated for one of the awards for my documentary Cracking Up, about my breakdown and my depression, and which you can see, by the way, on the website if you go into the video archive. And I think it is important because I think if you talk to a lot of people who have mental health problems, I've always been pretty lucky on this front, but a lot of people do say actually that the discrimination caused by the stigma and the taboo is in many ways worse than the symptoms. So I think actually that the media covering these issues properly, and not just the factual media, but also there's awards here tonight, I know, for some of the soaps and the fictional portrayal of mental health problems. These are really important. And I think it does matter. How the media cover these issues matters. These awards have been going for 15 years now. And I think that attitudes are beginning to change. I'm involved in the Time to Change campaign, which is designed to try to shift attitudes on mental health and mental illness. And I think these awards and this type of event is an important part of that. I did think long and hard before doing it, and obviously talked to family and friends about whether to do it. And I'm really glad that I did. One, because I think it's a very it's a good film, well, by which I mean technically well made, and I think it flows well, and the people I worked with did a fantastic job. But also because I know when I had my own breakdown in the mid-80s that it did help me to know that there were people out there who'd been through something similar or were going through something similar, and they got to the other side. And that was important, and I know from the feedback I get from people who've seen the film and read my novel, which is what gave me the idea in the first place to do the film. I know that people come up to me and they say, look, you know, my dad has that, my mum has that, and I'm glad that, you know, we can talk about it more openly. I think the government's got a pretty good record on mental health. Obviously, you can always want to do more and try to do more, but I think they are going in the right direction. But interestingly, one of the films that's up for another award tonight in one of the factual categories is a Newsnight report on MPs and mental health, which showed basically that MPs, why shouldn't they, have mental health problems just as the same as every other section of our country and our society, but actually feel even more inhibited. And to be honest, it's a pretty brave MP who stands up there before the electorate and says, look, you know, I'm this, I'm that, but I've also got a mental health problem. Now, I have to say, and my message to them always is that I personally have always been pleased that I've been open about it. I've never actually myself, I don't think, suffered the discrimination that I know that others do. And I think it is important that people in positions of responsibility and people who've got a platform and can get out there and make a case, that we all do what we can to break down the stigma, break down the discrimination, and try once and for all to get rid of what I think is the last great taboo.
Each of the programmes on the shortlist is worthy of award, and the judging panel argued long and hard about which of the following should win. And the shortlist wasn't, in fact, a very short list because there were 5 of them. But anyway, here they are. In Cracking Up, Alastair Campbell revisits the breakdown he experienced in 1986 through his own memories and interviews with those friends and colleagues who watched it happen. Let's see the clips.
And I must have phoned virtually every number that I had in my head. I was phoning it, and of course not realising I wasn't even getting beyond the switchboard because it wasn't even crossing my mind. You had to dial 9. So I'm just going 0, this, ring, 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 ring. You get more and more exasperated. You feel your mind is like a plate of glass, and you're desperately trying to hold it together. You're conscious of something being wrong. Everything that you do to try to get it back onto what you imagine is an even keel is just making it worse. And then it just sort of cracks, it just shatters, and you, inside your head, you feel this kind of just explosion goes off. And I could hear the noise going on through there, which is where this dinner for Neil Kinnock was going on, a big thing going on. I remember hearing bagpipes, you know, it being Scotland, that would have been Neil piped in. By then I was in such a sort of state of, I don't know what, that virtually everybody who came by me I kind of felt was part of an ongoing conversation that I was having with them. Because they look at you like you're very odd, which of course you are, but you don't realise that. thank you for teaching me what shagging a fish is in sign language. No, I'm very, very proud of this, I really am. I want to thank Stuart Prebble from Liberty Bell, who makes good, serious TV. Judith Dawson, who was a brilliant producer, Judy Lewis, Liberty Bell, and also Bill, the editor. I don't think, Bill, I've ever known your second name, because I don't read the credits, I'm sorry. But they're all here, and thanks to them. Thanks also to Mind and Mental Health Media, and thanks to Comic Relief and the National Lottery for the money that they've given to the Time to Change campaign, which I think is beginning to make a real difference at a time when others, I think, who can have a voice about this have a responsibility to use that voice to break down stigma wherever it may be. When I was at the last Mind Awards, I told a story about my daughter, who's wanted to be an actress since she was 3 and she's now 15, and when she and Fiona were having one of their 0 to 160 miles an hour rows, she said, "Mum, if you talk to me like that again, I'm not even going to mention my first BAFTA acceptance speech." Which is a great line. You know, as this is my first BAFTA acceptance speech, I'd like to thank Fiona and the kids, because I think there's one thing the film shows that we need that. Well, that was really nice actually, and I don't have the award because my daughter's gone off with it, but she did that last time as well. It's the second award that I've won from mental health charities, and this one for the documentary Cracking Up, and I really am very proud about it because I think the film meant a lot to me, but I get the sense that it's meant a lot to other people, and particularly people who've been through similar experiences. So I think it's just been a great night because there's been so many different forms of media, fiction, non-fiction, radio, television, which just are helping, hopefully, to break down the stigma and discrimination surrounding mental illness. I've got to be honest, when I was a journalist and occasionally got sent down to places like this, BAFTA, to cover awards, and I always used to think it was all a bit kind of backslapping and all the rest of it, and to some extent it is, and people say great, blah, blah, blah. But I think actually that mental illness is one area where I think the coverage of it actually can have a really significant impact upon people who have mental health problems. I mean, I talk to lots of people in the stuff that I've been doing with Time to Change and Mind about their own mental illnesses, and people will say that actually the discrimination that they feel, some of it media driven, is actually worse than the stigma, and than the symptoms. And I think you just have to, the way that, for example, we so often see a linkage between mental illness and violent crime in the media, whereas in fact somebody who's mentally ill is far more likely to be a victim of crime than they are to be a perpetrator. And I think some of the amazing stuff that's done I mean, EastEnders have won a big award tonight, and they've done some amazing stuff on depression and bipolar disorder, and really kind of realistic portrayals that I think do mean a lot to people who are going through something similar themselves. When we were making the film, Judith Dawson, who was really in charge of the production, and she kept saying to me, "Are you okay? You took," because we revisited all the places that I had my breakdown, and revisited some of the people that were involved in it as well, and kind of retraced the whole thing. And she kept saying to me, "Look, are you okay with this?" And I was absolutely fine, because to me, in a sense, I've learnt from it, I've recovered, I've built out of it. I still get depression, but I've kind of learnt, I hope, how to cope with that reasonably well. And so I don't feel that. Lots of people say, doesn't it feel a bit odd? And I guess it does if you stop to think about it. But I've always seen this as a part of trying to break down some of the barriers that surround this whole subject. I think, as I was saying earlier, I think the mental illness and the taboo surrounding it is the last great taboo. Well, it's partly the campaigner in me, I guess, that I'm always on the lookout for stories of people who've been through stuff like this. And I thought it was interesting, Inside Sport on BBC. Tomorrow night, I've seen them trailing. They're doing, Marcus Trescothick, the cricketer, Neil Lennon, the footballer, Frank Bruno, well-known history of mental illness that he's had. A guy who used to play for the All Blacks, really, great rugby player who also talking about his experiences of depression. I could sort of get a sense, and we're tracking this in the Time to Change campaign, that slowly, bit by bit, people feel that they can be more open about it. And I think we've got to get to a position where people can admit to something like depression in just the ways they admit to having flu or breaking a leg.